Hey guys, my name is DiVecchio. Welcome to our very first episode of Mastering Your Mobility Wall Mondays. I'm the inventor and co-founder of Mobility Wall, and we're so excited to finally bring these lives to you. At this point, we have thousands of people all around the country who are using Mobility Wall, have it installed in their homes. People still have questions. So our Mobility Wall family members have been asking, and we have finally answered. Not only do we want to bring an incredible product to you, but we also want to bring incredible education to help teach you about your bodies, teach you about pain management, and also teach you about sports performance and recovery. I myself invented this product because I was struggling and suffering with some issues with my own body that I wasn't able to resolve with current solutions on the market, as well as seeing issues with clients that I work with all around the country who just weren't being as compliant with recovery work that I would prescribe for them, because getting on the ground is difficult or just too painful with just force of gravity, getting on a foam roller on the ground, or it's really difficult balancing products, balls, or different devices on the wall and trying to stabilize them. So coming up with a solution that was vertical in three-dimensional space, gave you much more control, easier access. We believe that this was going to be more encouraging for the habit of self-care, hence Mobility Wall. So we have a lot to cover today, so I'm going to jump right in. We're going to start with going over some product details and components here. So we notice that we have two different products. We have our Mobility Wall Smooth Roller, and we have our Mobility Wall Pro Series. There's two main differences between these products. The Smooth Roller obviously is a smoother textured roller, and the Pro Series roller has these deep tissue pressure knobs. Also, the Pro Series comes with all four of our trigger point attachments, which you've seen probably on the website, and we'll cover some of those attachments during the live and some of the uses for those attachments. The Smooth Roller is great for people who are just getting started, just getting familiar with foam rolling, myofascial release. It's a more gentle experience, not as aggressive on the tissue. It's also great even if you are more advanced. Sometimes you just want to get in and smooth out a knot. You want a more gentle experience. For different areas of the body, it's a little more gentle to be able to access. I, in particular, find the Smooth Roller easier for certain areas like my forearms or my calves. Moving over to the Pro Series, the Pro Series deep tissue knobs, really effective for more trigger point therapy, or if you're looking to do some more clinical level techniques where you can pin the tissue, you can stretch, and you can mobilize. And we're going to cover a lot of territory on how to really take advantage of this product in that manner, because as all of us have great intentions of trying to get with our practitioners as often as we possibly can, it's just not feasible. You can't get to a massage therapist or a chiropractor 7 days a week. And in order for this type of work to be effective and for us to be able to progress through any of the issues that we're dealing with, we need more consistency, we need more time. And so Mobility Wall makes that possible. So let's go over a couple of the features here with the devices. Over here on the ends, we have what's called our L brackets. These are what secure against the door frame and keep this product extremely safe when you're using it. Using Mobility Wall, the most unique distinguishing factors about this product, which separates it from any other product on the market, is your ability to use inward pressure as well as upward pressure. This is unlike anything else. With traditional foam rollers, you're limited. You can really only use downward pressure on the foam roller on the ground. Even if you were to put something against the wall, that inward pressure, the wall traps you and limits you from being able to mobilize and move the same way that you can here in this three-dimensional space. So the two key components, which I think have been a little confusing for some people in the beginning when they first receive the device, is the ability to use upward pressure and inward pressure. I'm going to go over so many different movements with that today to show you how superior the benefits are using this product that way. So the L brackets are what provide a lot of stability and security for you on this device. Next, we have the oversized hand grips. These oversized hand grips are what you use to twist to tighten the device so that it starts to create outward pressure into your door frame to create the stability and the strength for when you begin to start foam rolling and using your trigger point therapy. So the lock ring is the last component. And the lock ring here, this is not a safety feature. This is an area where we've seen some people getting confused, that the lock ring is not a safety feature to prevent the bar from falling out of the doorway. Once you create enough force and pressure outward using the oversized hand grips, You want to check your device to make sure it's stable. That's it. You're in, you're locked in, it's good to go. The lock ring's main feature is to secure the trigger point receiver in the middle, which is where your attachments will go. So taking the attachment out, placing it into the middle of the trigger point receiver. You then take your lock ring, adjusting the oversized hand grips so that the two keyholes, the two teeth of the lock ring line up with the keyholes, and now you have accessibility to be able to spin your trigger point attachment 360 degrees around the bar at any position. So you can set the bar up high and position the ball down, facing straight down to bring the ball straight into your trap. You can move the ball straight out in front of you and get into the front pec, shoulder, upper bicep tendon. However you want to position that, but the lock ring is what secures this attachment when it's positioned where you're looking to keep it and be able to move around so that the trigger point attachment doesn't move on the bar. So I just wanted to clear that up because that's something that, a question that pops up quite a bit. And so the lock ring really only needs to be engaged when you're using the trigger points. If you've got enough pressure on the door frame after tightening the oversized hand grips and you're just using the rollers, then you don't have to worry about engaging the lock ring. You can get in and start using the rollers. The last piece I want to talk about as a trigger point receiver is that in the middle here, you saw me opening up this latch. This is called a cam lock, similar to what you would find on a bike seat. You open up the cam lock, you can slide the bike seat up and down. You open up the cam lock here, which releases pressure from the trigger point receiver onto the bar to give you the freedom to spin the trigger point receiver around at any location you'd like. If the cam lock doesn't feel tight when you close it down, we have a tightening nut, a finger nut on the back side that you can slowly tighten or loosen to create a tighter fit, a tighter grasp. So you have that ability to make sure that this is sitting in proper position by adjusting that tightening nut. And a little bit goes a long way, so you don't have to over tighten, because if you over tighten, you won't be able to close the cam lock. So when using the trigger point receivers and trigger point attachments, the two things you want to check for: engage the lock ring, and then make sure you have a really tight, good fit with that cam lock so it holds the attachments in place while you're using it. So that covers the product features and components. So I'm going to actually take down our smooth roller, and I'm going to start with our Pro Series. And I'd like everybody to take their mobility wall who's watching and following along. I'm going to have you adjust your mobility wall so that it's just below shin height. So you want it set right underneath your chin. And what we're going to do is we're going to come up underneath the bar, and we're going to place our right trap. I'm going to have everybody turn with their right trap. You're going to place your right trap straight up underneath the roller. And I want you to just put some upward pressure using your legs. This is, again, now this is the great component of the feature of mobility wall, is that you can come underneath this bar using upward pressure. I'm using my legs as the driver. So if I'm pushing up and I feel too much sensitivity, I can simply just back off very easily. If you're on the ground and you're trying to get that pressure, it's really difficult to balance. I'm sure many of you have done before. It can be painful on the wrists, it can be painful on the shoulders, but here simply, if I want more pressure, I can use my legs to drive up and get more pressure, or I can just back off. So for me in particular, I like to get a little bit more pressure, so I'm going to push up and hold. Now, once I have that pressure, we're going to slowly take your chin down to your chest, and then slowly sweep your chin over to your left shoulder and look up to the corner of the ceiling here. Now, right here, you might feel a stretch coming down. These muscles here coming off your jawline are called your scalenes. And this muscle comes off the jawline, goes all the way down the neck, travels underneath your collarbone to the tip of your shoulder. And this is an area where people tend to get really, really tight. People who sit at their desks a lot, people who sleep on their sides, people who are on their cell phones, they have what's called anterior rotation of the shoulders. So the shoulders roll forward, causes these muscles up top, called your trapezius muscles, to sit up high on the body, and makes all these muscles short and tight. So mobility wall allows you to get in here and target the trapezius muscle, as well as give you the ability to mobilize the neck and stretch some of the connective tissue from the jaw, from the neck, all the way down to the shoulder, to create more space and alleviate pain, discomfort, and any tension you have here. And when we're performing these techniques, you want to go slow. Our whole term that we use in mobility wall is slow is pro. And as you're using these rollers to scan the body, which is what we're supposed to be doing when we're foam rolling, trigger point therapy, is you want to take your time and really listen. Make it more of a meditative process for yourself. Take your time and really listen. Feel where you might be a little bit locked up, where there might be a little bit more sensitivity. If you find a spot that's really sore, that's an indication that that area is really tight. And that's maybe a spot that you want to give a little bit more attention to. So we're going to take this flow a little bit longer here. We'll go chin down to chest, sweep your chin all the way to the left side, look up to the corner of the ceiling. And then while you're holding that position, getting that stretch, I want you to take your right arm and slowly lateral raise that right arm out to the side. Some of you might find shorter range of motion. Others might be able to get it up a little bit higher. But that short range of motion, if you can't get that arm up very high while you're pinning down this upper trapezius muscle, and that's an indication that we've got some work to do on your shoulder mobility. You start to see where some of those limitations are. Another way we can play with some shoulder mobility here is you can bend that right arm at 90 degrees while we're pinning the tissue down. And then we're going to play with internal rotation. And then let's go backwards into external rotation. You get to explore all these different ranges of motion and mobility, things that you cannot do with a traditional foam roller on the ground. Being in this space gives us that freedom to move and play around with different ranges. Now, I'm giving you some basic guidelines, but there's also a sense of intuition. I want you to take your time and feel and play on your own and see what feels right for you. So that's one technique that we're going to work on the upper traps. I'm going to show you another technique. You're going to come back under the roller. We're going to pin that trapezius muscle, and I want you to take 1 foot forward, your right foot forward, and take your left foot back. And while you're putting pressure up into that roller, I want you to envision that these knobs are acting like fingers. They're grabbing that upper trapezius muscle. And on the count of 3, we're going to exhale, and we're going to push our bodies forward slowly. And we're going to let this foam roller push that upper trapezius muscle back to give us a nice stretch. On the count of 3, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Push forward, exhale. And then slowly turn your head to the left and feel that stretch. It's really intense right now. I slept last night with my head propped up on a pillow, my chin forward, so it caused some of these muscles to get tight, so this feels really good. And then bring your chin right back to center, and then glide back to neutral position with that upper body. Now, when you come off, that's the technique called pinning and stretching. When you come off of that, what's really great is for you to be able to play with some range of motion here. Move that shoulder around, move the neck around slowly, see how it feels. You should be able to identify a difference in right side, left side almost immediately. Another great benefit about mobility wall is that it translates very, very quickly. Moving on, we're going to come in and hit the upper neck. So I want you to just stand with your back towards the mobility wall. We're going to put our upper neck in between the channel of the 2 foam rollers, bracing your feet, shoulder width apart, so you have good stability, good leverage. And from here, we're just going to slowly back under the bar. Let those rollers go up the back of the neck. This is an area called the suboccipitals in the upper traps where they meet together in the back of the skull. Another area where people tend to get tension headaches. And so going underneath this bar, and if you feel like you're too far out in front of it, you can bring your feet a little bit more underneath you so you get more leverage and you can put a little bit more upward pressure. And you can see how comfortable and relaxed my body is here. I'm able to use the lower portion of my body as the driver while I relax the upper portion of my body, which is necessary in order for us to be able to penetrate the tissue that we're working on. From here, I might find a spot and I may play around with just some small rotation to the right, small rotation to the left, exploring, discovering, finding areas that are locked up, areas that might be sore, that might need a little extra attention. Taking my time. I know we've been seeing a lot of people writing comments saying they're trying to understand how to properly get the back and the neck area. This is why it was so important for us to start getting into these lives, because we want to show you the unique distinguishing factors of how to use this product. There's nothing else on the market like this to be able to get underneath the bar this easily and this comfortably with this much access to the different regions of your body and be as effective. I'm going to slowly start to slide, turn back to my right side. And as I come underneath, I've got my right trap underneath the bar. I'm going to take my right hand, reach across to my left shoulder. And as I reach across to my left shoulder, I'm going to step underneath the bar, and I'm going to start to hinge at my hips so that I can expose and open up the back side of my neck and the back side of my shoulder. And while I put pressure up in there and sort of just explore finding certain areas of that shoulder that are locked up. And I'm using the knobs to find those little areas in between the connective tissue. And I found a spot right here. So I'm holding in this area. And now while I hold, I have the ability to just move the arm in various different planes to try to open up and unlock that tissue that is tight. I do a lot of overhead pressing movements, which causes some adhesions to build up in that upper trap rhomboid section of my shoulder. So it causes a lot of discomfort for me if I don't work on this pretty consistently. So you can see again, here I am just slowly exploring and navigating. There's some basic guidelines, but there are no rules or rights or wrongs. This is really what feels right for you. And that feels like it's starting to loosen up. That feels pretty good right there. Again, come off, play around with some different ranges of motion, loosen up the neck a little bit. That's feeling really good, actually. Okay, so let's move down. I'm going to cover, there's a lot to cover today, but I don't want to keep it too long, so I want to just go over some of my favorite movements for you guys. So let's take this down a notch. Let's maybe bring it down about 3 inches. You can see how easy it is to slide this up and down. Once you have mobility wall set to your door frame, this product is very easy to move up and down. I just slightly loosen the handles, just enough to release the pressure off the door, and it can go up and down to any height very, very easily. No issues. And you want to make sure that when you're tightening, you keep inward pressure with your hands on the hand grips to hold it in place and lock it up. So next one is going to be mid-back, mid-thoracic spine. Now, a lot of people will lay down on the ground to try to get this area, which is not a bad maneuver, but at the same time, it doesn't always make it easy to get into those deep areas and with enough pressure. So using mobility wall, we're going to use that upward pressure technique. So I'm going to have you put your back against the mobility wall. My spine is right between the channel of the 2 foam rollers. And we're going to make sure our feet are underneath us, not out in front of us. The feet are out in front of us. You can lean back, right? But this is the same thing as sort of laying on the ground. You're not really getting a tremendous amount of pressure. If I put my feet more underneath, and now I have the advantage of being able to put my hands on my knees, or I can put my hands on the door frame. So at any given time, I can have 4 points of contact for complete control and stability. And then I use my legs as the driver to get the amount of pressure that I'm looking for. So as my feet are underneath me, I'm going to start to hinge my hips back and go under the bar. And then from there, I'm going to start to drive up and put that upward pressure in. And I'm letting those deep tissue knobs get into those traps, into the outside of the lats, the rhomboids. And now I'm just easily exploring while I'm putting that upward pressure. I can play around with all sorts of trunk rotation. Just take your time. You want to go slow. You want to breathe through it. Relax the nervous system. You don't want to create tension in the areas that you're trying to work. Hands back on my knees if I want a little bit more control. I can hold on a spot here. I can reach across my body. I can take my arm back, bring my arm up in front. Again, all different ways to just explore. That's what part of this process is. Usually people have pain in a certain area, but that may not actually be the area where you're having the issue. It's called referral pain. Sometimes people have pain somewhere down their arm, and that pain is actually initiated up in their neck. And so that referral pain coming down the arm needs to be attended to by working areas in the neck and the traps and shoulders. So this is a great way to get your back. Coming off that, play around, a little thoracic extension, little rotation. Feels great. So from here, I'm going to move the bar down. Next, we're going to target the lats. And the lats are the muscles that come off the back of the shoulder, come all the way down and connect into the hips to help stabilize the shoulders and upper frame. So the lats can get really tight to what's called your anterior serratus, the muscles that run along the rib cage here. That contributes to that shoulder forward rotated position that I was telling you. So one of the ways we want to work the lats is coming in from the side, taking your right foot forward. We're going to place the right side against the roller again. You want to take that right foot forward, left foot back, and I'm going to pin the lat against the deep tissue knobs. And as I have it pinned, I'm then going to exhale as I slowly rotate and open up to my left. And I'm letting this foam roller, the knobs, push the lat back away from the rib cage. So that's helping to open up and create more capacity and more mobility in that shoulder capsule. And I'm going to do this flow a few times. Every time I pin, get back and get situated, and I rotate. And I'm relaxing this arm. The only thing that's driving and doing the work is my legs. And it's much easier to use my legs to drive and create force than it is to try to hold my body weight up on the ground. So I'm driving in, I'm putting pressure against those lats, against the anterior serratus, and then I'm exhaling as I rotate to my left, and that foam roller is stretching and pushing that lat back. Yeah, that feels good. And you can change heights. You can come down a little bit lower and get more up into the subscapula, which is a little bit higher up in the armpit. You want to work your way up and down that muscle and get the full length of that muscle. Same maneuver. If you want to just come in a little bit more and just hold that pressure on the backside, you have what's called your teres major and teres minor. And those areas can get tight too and a little sore. And once I have pressure here, I can hold that, and then I can actually take this arm out into extension and play with more range of motion and incorporate a technique called ART. This is active release technique, right? So you're getting a chance to work that tissue at a lengthened state and a shortened state and through active range of motion. Again, these are things that are just impossible to do with a foam roller on the ground or a wall. If I was doing this on the wall, I'd be hitting the wall. I wouldn't have any room to move. So being in this three-dimensional space gives me so much freedom to be able to explore and play comfortably. And as you noticed, how secure this device is. Very, very rarely would we see anybody wanting to put downward pressure on the mobility wall because there's so many more advantageous ways to use the inward and upward pressure, as well as pinning and just mobilizing and stretching from different angles. So that works for lats. Next up, I just want to get the side head of my shoulder. In this area, we have the bicep, the lateral deltoid, and we have the tricep all sort of converge on the side and can get a little sticky. So it doesn't get any easier than this. Leaning my shoulder in, my feet are very relaxed. I'm using inward pressure. If I want more pressure, I change the angle of my body. I can step out a little bit farther to get more pressure. And once I have that pressure in that side head of my shoulder, I can then play with some external rotation movements here. I can play with internal rotation. I can rotate my body and start to get into that connective tissue of the upper bicep tendon in the shoulder. I can rotate the opposite direction and get into the back side of the tricep. And once I've got that tricep pinned, I can play with some flexion and extension here. This feels really good. I did upper body the other day. So triceps are a little tight and sore. Play with some internal rotation of the shoulder while I'm pinning it. It's limitless what you can do here. Help opening up that shoulder, releasing some of that tension from that forward rotated position. I'm going to go around to the other side because I want to give you a different angle of how to get the upper bicep tendon all the way down to the low bicep tendon. But I'm going to let you guys know that when you're using mobility wall, you do not want to use mobility wall in the direction opposite of the L brackets. You want to be using force the same direction that the L brackets are pressing against the doorway. So I'm just going on the other side to give you a clearer image, a clearer view of what we're going to do here. So to get the upper bicep tendon, you come in with a split stance. And we come in low and put that front shoulder. In this section up here, we have our front pec, our front shoulder, and our upper bicep tendon that all converge up in the top here. And that's an area where we get tight and can have a tendency to hold your body weight forward. So coming in front, I'm going to put that section of my chest and my shoulder and my bicep in. And again, I have so much control of how much pressure I want. I can push in harder, driving my legs with force in, or I can just back off a little bit. Now, here's another technique that's really difficult to do with any other product, but with mobility wall it makes it very easy, is we're going to do what's called cross friction. So you press the muscle against the foam roller. I've got the deep tissue knobs here. And from here, I'm just going to slowly move in a lateral position, left to right, to help separate some of the tissue in the bicep up top where it connects into the front shoulder where the pec is. So I'm slowly moving left to right, really tight, concentrated patterns. Feels really good. I can actually feel blood flow opening up into that area. One of the other great benefits of soft tissue work is the ability to increase circulation and blood flow to those areas. And I can play with some flexion and extension here. Internal rotation, external rotation. Really opens that up. It's great. Moving on, we're going to take our mobility wall down just a little bit lower, and now we're going to work the lower section of our back, which is the lower lumbar and the sacrum area. So you're seeing here that I've gone underneath the roller up high, working the upper section of my thoracic spine. I've worked the middle of my back, which is where the traps and the erectors come up to meet. And now I'm going to work the lower section of my back, which is where a lot of people tend to have lower back pain. So let's slowly loosen our mobility wall. I'm going to take this down to just above hip height. Tighten it back up. And again, we're going to put our feet underneath us, not out in front of us. Out in front of us, you still can get some pressure, but it's not much. So if you're somebody who is really sensitive to the pressure of the foam roller, then maybe you want to start with your feet a little farther out in front. If you're looking for more pressure, let's bring the feet underneath you, hands on your knees, and let's start to push the hips underneath the roller, and now put upward pressure, and these are small strokes. Right now, I'm moving about 2 inches forward and 2 inches back while I'm putting upward pressure. So I'm able to work that low back section called the sacrum, the low lumbar, and then if I go left to right, I'm able to hit what's called your QL. Those muscles were on the side that people typically get tight and uncomfortable. Helps to increase range of motion and rotation. Another great way to get your QL here is that you can come in from the side, and as I put my hand on the door frame, I let my feet come out in front of me, and I can just put that pressure back. Now, if you try to do this on the ground, this is incredible. It can be incredibly excruciating because, again, all you're dealing with is just straight gravity. In this vertical position, I have full control. My feet are on the ground out in front of me. If I want more pressure, I can drive in more. I've got my hand on the door frame so I can easily and comfortably control it. And I can play around with small rotations back and forth, exploring where I might have. So right here, I can feel a spot. So I'm just going to give this area a little bit of extra love. Drive in, rotate, and stretch. Another great way to get this QL area is to put your foot underneath the bar, get your hip up against the roller, and then as we start to sink down and push that hip under the roller, you take that arm and reach across your body. And what we're doing here is we're creating length out of the lat, which comes all the way down into the hip, comes very close to the QL. So you're able to create length in that muscle while I work that soft tissue. And then I come back up, reach, stretch, putting pressure up into that bar, inhale back up again, reach and stretch, come back up again. So that's a really great flow if you're feeling tight, compressed, and short in the low back area. Next up, we're going to move down to our lower body, touch on some of the leg work. We're going to put the bar just below hip height. And I'm going to hop on the other side of the bar. Again, you don't want to use mobility wall in the opposite direction of the L brackets. You want to use it only in the direction that the L brackets are facing along the door frame. But I want to show you how to effectively hit the upper part of the quad like no other. So we're going to take a split stance. Make sure everybody has the mobility wall set just below waist height. We're going to put that front leg out underneath the roller. Put your hands on the door frame, and you're going to drive your knee down towards the ground as you're placing upward pressure against the device. So I've got that roller in the upper part of my quad where the IT band, the upper quad, the hip flexor, they all start to converge up top. This is an area where people get really tight and sticky. And so I'm putting upward pressure in here as I'm driving that knee forward. This can be really intense. So again, you have the ability to control that pressure. So if it's too much, you can easily back off. From here, I can go back to that cross frictioning pattern. While I've got that pressure up into the device, I can now play with some left to right movement with my knee to help separate some of this muscle tissue up high that gets really tight and tangled. I like to describe this area as like the back of your cable TV, where you have all the wires tangled up in the back. That's what happens up in this section of the leg and causes a lot of issues with hip pain, IT band pain. So you hold, and then you can play with that cross friction pattern of left to right, opening up. Now, if you want to start to rotate to the side, now we can start to get into that IT band. And again, getting that IT band on the ground can be really, really painful because it's difficult to control the pressure. You've got one speed with foam rolling on the ground. It's all or nothing. That's it. So the mobility wall really gives you the advantage to find those in-betweens. If you want a lot of pressure, you have the ability to go deep. If you want less, you can simply back off. So I'm getting into that IT band here. And I'm working that upper section, that TFL. It's really opening up that hip. I'm going to come out and show you another angle. If you're working that IT band, you also have the ability to take this foot off the ground and play with some active release of bending, flexing, and extending that leg, taking that IT band through different ranges of motion. Hope you're all feeling good out there. with your first experience getting taken through the live demo here. And mind you too, we're working primarily, you see me working primarily one side. Later today, I'll be working the other side, but when you're working the soft tissue work, I mean, obviously if you have a certain area, a specific area that you want to focus on, focus and target on that area. Not everybody has an hour a day to work on this stuff, but you want to try to balance out left and right sides. So if you're finding yourself working one side more than the other, and you're feeling imbalanced, you want to try to focus on both sides. Let's take the mobility wall down another step. And now we're going to work the hamstring and we're going to work the adductors. The inside thighs, called the adductors, comes all the way around, connects to the hamstring. Another area that becomes a culprit for hip issues and is not easy to access. But with mobility wall, it makes it very simple. So we're going to take the mobility wall, adjust it down. You want to be about mid-thigh for your adjustment to get the adductors here. And you're going to straddle your mobility wall. So you're going to have both feet on either side. Both feet are flat on the ground here. And you want to shift your weight. I'm facing with my right side, so you want to shift your weight to your right leg. And the leg that's facing in the same direction as the L bracket's coming against the door frame, I'm going to pull in against the roller. And as I'm pulling in against the roller, I've got my hands on the door frame for stability, and I'm going to slowly roll up and down. Small, concentrated strokes, getting into that section of the adductor. And if you see here, I can rotate my hips internally. I can get the inside of the adductor. I can start to externally rotate, get a little bit more hamstring. I can go deep into the groin where it comes up and connects inside the glute. Find some of those areas in there. Very easy to access. I know this is a spot that a lot of people like to get, but it's hard to get. And this makes it extremely easy. Another way to hit this, simply to take it to the next level, is to take this leg off the ground and keep all your weight on the opposite leg and then pull pressure in against the roller as you bring the leg back and forth. And if I have a spot somewhere along there that feels tender, which is going to be an indication that it's tight, I can then play with bending this leg, taking it through range of motion. Which helps me find where it's locked up. How's that feeling out there? Pretty good? I hope you guys also feel free to write any comments or questions in the notes section here. We won't be answering them live right now, but we will be checking back and responding. We'll be reaching back out through other additional posts and other videos that we're putting up, so stay tuned for that. Now we're working our way down to the shins and the calves below the knee. I'm going to swap out rollers. I'm going to go to the smooth roller so I can show you just another variation. This is an area that I like to get with the smooth roller. We're going to set the mobility wall just below your knees. And once you have it set just below your knees, you're going to lean against the door frame and put the outside of your shin on top of the roller. And once I have my shin on there, I'm going to find some sensitive areas. This muscle, the tibialis, runs from the knee to the ankle. It's an area that a lot of people don't know about. And when that area gets tight, it tends to lock up the ankle and cause the feet to either rotate out or rotate in. Different for everybody, but either way, these muscles can get really tight and lock up the ankle. And our feet are really important to the overall function of the body. How our feet strike the ground, how our feet move, translates all the way up the body. So having good ankle mobility is really, really important. And opening up this area can be really beneficial to helping resolve some issues with the foot and the rest of the body. So this is the reason why you want to work on the tibialis. And again, if you're trying to do this on the ground, it's extremely difficult to try to hold your body weight up. The force of gravity can be brutal on that area when you're coming straight down. So once you get on top here, you've got the tibialis muscle. I find a spot right here. I'm just going to slowly start to rotate my foot and my ankle and work that ankle mobility, and I can feel where it's all connected, where some of those areas are, and I can just play around if I feel like it needs it. There's certain areas and certain sections that are not sore. That feels pretty good. And then you come off, play with some ankle mobility, roll it around. That feels great, actually. Excellent. That's great for runners out there. I don't know, all you runners who probably tendon shin splints, perfect movement for you to focus on. Last one we're going to hit is we're going to take the mobility wall down just another couple inches. And this one is great because a lot of people try to get their calves or foam roll their calves on the ground. Extremely difficult. Not only just holding yourself up, but also too trying to get the right amount of pressure. When you're sitting on the ground in an L-sit, trying to get that pressure down into the calf, you're not really getting that deep into the calf. So this position, this angle, is really, really unique to mobility wall and extremely effective. Also, too, I'm going to go on the other side. As I mentioned before, I'll keep saying it. You don't want to use mobility wall in the opposite direction of the L brackets. You want to use it in the direction that's facing. But for viewing purposes, so you guys can get a clear image of what we're doing here, you're going to step facing away from your mobility wall. And the calf that I'm going to use against the roller, the opposite foot goes out in front, and you shift your weight forward to the leg in front. And while I have my weight forward, I lift my heel of the foot that's pressed against the roller, and I heel drive down to the floor. And as I'm heel driving down to the floor, I'm pressing that calf back into the roller, being able to generate force. Now again, I've got full control. So if it's too much, I can easily back off, or I can drive with more force and pressure as much as I want. Once I've got that position down, I can then play around with rotating my foot in and get the inside head of my calf, or I can rotate my foot out and get the outside head of my calf. I can even turn to the side and get the outside shin, part of the tibialis that I was not able to get. And lastly, I can even cross friction that section to open up and separate the two heads of the calf, the gastroc. So if I'm holding down, it's small little lateral movements side to side to help open up those calf muscles. And those calves are tight on almost every single person I've come across. So this is an area, this is one that you definitely want to make note of and add this to your movement cue. So guys, that pretty much covers the majority of the unique movements here. We have so many to go over, but I know you're all busy. You got stuff going on today. So I just wanted to touch on some of our most unique movements. I do want to cover one last thing with the trigger point attachment. Since we didn't show much of that, if you guys have the ability to take your mobility wall back up to shoulder height, choose any one of your attachments. I'm going to pop the small ball in. Let's get the small ball attachment into place. Let's get the lock ring secured. And then I'm going to position the ball straight down. I'm going to show you how to get this into your trap. I'm going to come up underneath the bar. I'll hook my hand onto the bar, and I place my trap right up into that ball. And when I'm using the small ball, or any one of the attachments, the idea with trigger point therapy is not these big strokes that you would use with a roller. The idea of the trigger point therapy is to actually find those knots, pin it and hold it, and then play with range of motion with connective tissue. So I'm rotating my neck. I can feel that spot in my upper trap that I'm holding on the ball as I'm rotating and moving my neck. I can also move my shoulder and feel that same location. So rubbing back and forth is not how you want to engage with this device when you're using the trigger point attachments. You want to pin it, hold it, and then rotate and move around. Play with some neck movement, play with some shoulder movement. It's a great technique. So that covers the majority of what we're going to do today. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you so much. This has been fantastic. I hope you've all gotten a tremendous amount of value from this. We're going to be doing lives every single Monday. We have so many great coaches and practitioners who are going to be joining us and doing takeovers. We have 2 great manual movement therapists who are all set up for next Monday. You'll see some announcements of that over the course of this week, so make sure you save it in your calendar for next week to join us live again. Again, we'll be going through all your comments and questions. Can't wait to hear what you all have to say, get back to you, and thank you so much. If you are a coach or a practitioner who has any interest in joining our family and wanting to get involved with educating, please feel free to send us an email at hello@mobilitywall.com, or you can message us, send us a DM through Facebook or Instagram. So thanks again, guys. We appreciate you. Join our private Facebook group to stay connected to the community, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one. Stand up and keep moving.